Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kitchen Table Conversations. I am your host, Angela, and once again, just thanks so much for tuning in. With all of the options in our very busy worlds, just grateful that you've decided to tune in and share some space with us today. So hard to believe that we've just celebrated our Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. So we're well into October now, and this fall seems to be flying by. But not without its trials and tribulations, like life can be. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that can be very emotionally triggering. The news is just awful with so many things that are going on. I like to try to take time every day to search out and find some really good feel-good stories, because for me, it's really important to balance my thought process, because we all have a tendency to kind of overthink when things are upsetting. When we're in the middle of a kind of a chaos of our own or a crisis situation, it's hard not to think about how to fix it, how to make it better, how to respond, and why sometimes we ask ourselves, why is this happening to us? And why is life so unfair and so difficult? So the feelings that we have around all of the things that are happening in our own personal worlds and in, around global issues are real, and we're allowed to have those feelings. And people don't necessarily have to agree with our feelings, but our feelings are ours, and we get to have them. What sometimes gets to be a little bit problematic is the thoughts that go along with these feelings. And sometimes these thoughts are very meaningful and very helpful. Taking time to think about some of the problems that we're faced allows us the time we need to plan to make improvements for our future. And we get to learn from the things that have happened in the past so that our future may improve as a result of what we've learned, right? Life is a series of learning opportunities, I like to say. And until you've done something once, we don't always know how we're going to handle it. But we can continue to learn and hopefully move forward in a good way. But sometimes our thoughts can be quite intrusive and heavy. And the key for us is to start to recognize when our thoughts no longer serving us well. So I think this is something that we often owe ourselves, is the opportunity to say, is this helping me or is this hurting me? And if it's not helping me or the people around me, maybe there's an opportunity for me to take a break or to detach from it. And again, when we're in the middle of a crisis, or if our circumstances are fairly bleak, if we're going through, terrible grief and loss, or if we're experiencing some health crisis for ourselves or a family member, and it seems like it's going to be, a lifelong condition, for example, whether it's a mental health condition, whether it's complex neurodevelopmental disorder or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. I mean, these are lifelong conditions that do not go away. So how do we cope in ways that can't get rid of a problem? We can't get rid of all of our problems, but we can cope or deal with them in healthy ways, or we can deal with them in problematic ways. And so I'm really pleased to be trained in acceptance commitment therapy and training. And like the title implies, it does focus on acceptance and being in the present moment. And there is opportunity to explore, once again, the difference between feelings and behaviors, and how we often develop coping styles and strategies based on some of the rules that we have in our head, some of the expectations we place on ourselves, and some of the expectations certainly that society has placed on us or our family members. And this training allows us to ask ourselves some really important questions around whether these rules that we have still make sense and are still relevant, or whether or not we can detach from some things or some circumstances that we don't have much control over. So that doesn't mean that we put our head in the sands and pretend that everything is always rosy and wonderful, but it means that we can sit in our distress for a little while and try to determine what is it that we're to learn from this circumstance, and how can we move on in a good way. So pleased to be trained in that. It's been like game changing for me personally and for many of the people that I support. And again, it takes mindfulness, being in the present moment to a whole new level. I have to say I was a resistant participant in terms of any kind of meditation or mindfulness activities, because for me, my mind is always very, very busy, and it was difficult for me to settle down and to understand that mindfulness doesn't mean having a blank slate and being completely quiet and not having any thoughts at all, because that is just not even possible for most of us. And so anyways, I learned a little bit more about that and how we can incorporate mindfulness and being present in everyday activities, and how not to continue to avoid painful circumstances, because sometimes we do need to sit and process and allow ourselves to learn and to honor the feelings that we're experiencing. So I hope that this has piqued your interest a little bit. I am offering a group for caregivers, specifically for people who parent or provide love and support to people with who are very spirited. Their children are very spirited. Maybe they have a little ADHD or some behavioral or emotional challenges. Maybe there are some mental health conditions that are puzzling to the parents and caregivers. And this training that I offer, research is indicating that outcomes are improving. And I can tell anecdotally from the people that I support, either individually or group format, that a lot of the strategies and the suggestions and the activities that we tease out in these kinds of programs really are helpful for the day-to-day. So check out my website for more details around that. And I'd like to leave you right now with a little mindful meditation that might help you to slow down your thoughts and maybe recharge, maybe allow you to rest, maybe allow you to see for even if it's just a moment or two, that we can quiet our busy minds and we can reap the benefits of that throughout the day. So we will start by getting into a comfortable position on your chair or maybe the floor, if that's, and if it's available to you, I would suggest that you close your eyes or soften your eyes and maybe look towards the floor. Free yourself from some of the extra distractions that we might be tempted to look at. And just take a moment to pay attention to your breathing. Is our breath quick? Is it shallow? Or are we taking deep breaths? Do we fill up our bellies when we breathe? Or do we just touch the top of our lungs? I wonder if you can take your palms of your hands and rub your thighs and get a little bit of heat, and flip your palms towards the ceiling as an expression of openness to what this short little meditation might offer you. Feel your feet on the floor, maybe even tap them to ground yourself. And again, pay attention to your breathing. Is it different than when we began? Or is it the same? And notice your thoughts. It's okay to have thoughts. We're always thinking. But it's also okay to say, not now, and let that thought go. Sometimes people find it helpful to Imagine the thought on a puffy cloud and watching it get blown across the sky. So now I'm going to ask that you pretend that there's a string attached to the top of your head and it's pulling you up ever so gently just to lengthen your spine and to engage your core and help you to sit upright, some say with dignity. I think a lot of times we end up dropping our shoulders and sinking into our chair, which adds extra pressure to our spine and sometimes leaves us with a backache. So if we engage our core, we automatically begin to strengthen those muscles and help us to protect our spine and strengthen our bodies. So just ever so gently, not rigid, just comfortable, sitting upright in your chair or on the floor. And now I want to start by taking 3 breaths with intention. And I do want to see if you can actually fill your belly on some of these breaths. So we'll start by breathing in through our nose and out ever so gently through our mouth. So this is going to take a longer time to exhale. And I find it helpful to imagine I put my pinky finger in front of my mouth about 6 inches away, and I pretend it's a candle. And rather than blowing the candle flame out, I just watch it flicker. So let's try that. Let's put our finger about 6 inches in front of our mouth, and we'll take 3 breaths, one at a time, obviously, one in through our nose, and exhale ever so gently, watching the flame flicker. So let's start. Inhaling now, and exhaling ever so gently. Let's take our second breath in through our nose. And out ever so gently. And the last one. And now just take a moment to notice, where are we feeling any tension? For me, my shoulders dropped a little bit when I exhaled. Each time I was able to reduce some of the tension in my neck, which is where I typically hold it. What did you notice? Can you feel your bum on the chair? Are your feet cold or comfortable? Did you feel a little lightheaded by taking those deep breaths? That's very common, by the way. I kind of only encourage 3 of those at a time. Do you feel more relaxed? Do you feel more energized? There's no right or there's no wrong answer. And just notice your breath, going back to the way we normally would breathe. Do we breathe quietly or do we make some sounds? Does it make a difference if we make a sound? For me, when I'm paying attention to my breath, I do try to make sounds with it, because our brains can only concentrate on one thought at a time. So if I'm really thinking about my breathing, I'm not thinking about the pressures of the rest of my day, or the worry that I have, or the conflict that I had earlier in the morning, for example. Our brains can only think of one thing at a time clearly. But that doesn't mean that we don't get lots of interruptions. Sometimes it's helpful to think about our thoughts as just text bubbles, full of words, and some of them are really, really important. Some of them are true, and some of them aren't. Some of them are our thoughts and beliefs, and some of them are thoughts and beliefs that we hear from other places that don't even belong to us. So at any point in time, we can choose to place meaning behind our thoughts or to detach. And I think that this is where I'd like to leave you today. Think about whether or not our thoughts are ours, or are they someone else's? Are they important? Are they helpful? Or are they taking us closer to where we want to be and what we want to accomplish? Or are they holding us back? So check out my website for more information, and if you're a parent or a caregiver, an opportunity to attend a group, or to reach out if you want to learn more about how to incorporate ACT into your day-to-day. And I hope that you bring this conversation back to your kitchen tables, because I think sometimes if we think it, we believe it. And if we judge ourselves fairly harshly by the thoughts that go on inside our head. And I'm not sure that that's really helpful a lot of the times. So again, bring this back to your kitchen tables, and I'm excited to hear about where these conversations take you. With many thanks, Angela.